I now give the floor to His Excellency Denis Ronaldo Moncada Colindres, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Nicaragua.
Su Excelencia,
Your Excellency Tijani Mohamed Bande, President of the 74th Session of the United Nations General Assembly, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, representatives of the United Nations member states, honorable delegates. I convey to you the fraternal message of peace and respect from the people of Nicaragua, the President of the Republic, Comandante Daniel Ortega Saavedra, and Vice President Compañera Rosario Murillo. The theme of this session, galvanizing multilateral efforts for the eradication of poverty, quality education, climate action, and inclusion, coincides with prioritized state policies which the government of Nicaragua has successfully developed over the past decade. We reaffirm the commitment and political will of the Government of Reconciliation and National Unity of Nicaragua to continue developing and strengthening these inclusive economic and social policies geared toward the common good of Nicaragua. Nicaragua welcomes the efforts promoted by the Secretary General at the Climate Action Summit held here in New York, as well as the commitments assumed in this framework by many of the states aimed at overcoming the grave threat to the existence of humanity that is caused by climate change. Nicaragua and the countries of the Central American region are among the most vulnerable nations on the planet, and our people suffer very serious consequences due to the destructive effects of climate change. It is urgent that the international community adopt measures that curb global warming to ensure the future of the Earth, humanity, and the life of present and future generations. Based on the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, our country makes great economic, social, and preventive efforts to address climate change with positive results that have been internationally recognized. Nicaragua will continue to be a factor of stability, peace, and regional security, and we will also continue to fight to maintain the important indicators of inclusive economic, political, educational, and social development achieved so far, attaining significant progress toward the eradication of poverty. The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, recognizes that the government of Nicaragua has achieved success in its economic and social policies. In addition, UNICEF recognizes that Nicaragua has a broad legal framework as well as national and international instruments that protect the human rights of children and adolescents. It also recognizes that the government of Nicaragua has managed to reduce general poverty rates by 17.6% and extreme poverty by 7.7% between 2009 and 2016, and that we have achieved a notable reduction in infant mortality. UNICEF also recognizes that in Nicaragua, significant progress has been made to guarantee free access, extensive coverage, and better quality education. UNICEF and Nicaragua have agreed upon a cooperation program for 2019 to 2023. We reiterate that in order to fulfill the 2030 agenda and to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, including overcoming poverty and quality education, the existence of unilateral coercive measures which violate international law and the human rights of our peoples must disappear. Raising obstacles to prevent our people from reaching these goals is inhuman and criminal and must be denounced and condemned by all of humanity. Once again, we make an urgent call for a reinvention of the United Nations as proposed by Nicaraguan priest and Foreign Minister Miguel Descoto Brockman in 2008, during his presidency of this General Assembly. The transformation of the United Nations is indispensable in order for it to serve effectively the interests of humanity. Recent expulsion by the United States of 2 representatives of the sister Republic of Cuba to this body is another example of the United Nations' need for a profound transformation and change of headquarters in order to meet the objectives for which it was created and become the multilateral forum that serves all countries of the world without limitations or quarantines for delegates of member countries. We express our rejection and condemnation of the expulsion of 2 Cuban diplomats from the United Nations headquarters in New York in a clear violation of international law, and in particular the headquarters agreement between the United Nations and the government of the host country. Illegal acts such as these confirm the urgent need for the United Nations to be refounded and for the headquarters state to be changed to a sister country in Africa, a continent that has the right to a permanent seat on the Security Council of this organization, and that urgently demands the reinvention and urgent democratization of the United Nations. We condemn once again the criminal blockade against the sister Republic of Cuba and all its extraterritorial measures and ramifications. Nicaragua rejects all coercive economic measures that seek to crush the will and spirit of freedom and sovereignty of the peoples and governments of the world. We reiterate our militant solidarity with the sister Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, its Bolivarian people, and the constitutional and legitimate government of President Nicolas Maduro. We denounce and condemn any threat of military intervention and the invocation of the obsolete Inter-American Reciprocal Assistance Treaty, TR, which is nothing more than an instrument designed by the government of the United States to threaten or make use of force, and which is advanced within the framework of the Organization of American States, the OAS. We continue to support decolonization throughout the world in solidarity with the Palestinian and Sahrawi peoples, with Puerto Rico and the Malvinas Islands that belong to Argentina. To conclude, Mr. President, ministers and delegates, 74 years have passed since the adoption of the Charter of the United Nations, its purposes and principles have contributed in some measure to the maintenance of international peace and security. However, new modalities which are incompatible with the purposes of the United Nations are being put into practice by some of the major powers that seek to subjugate developing countries and undermine their rights to self-determination and political independence. In Nicaragua, we continue along the path of development with social justice, with the families at the forefront, with gender equity, the protagonism of youth, and generating more security, more education, health, energy, water and sanitation, roads, bridges, housing, agricultural production, caring for nature in the face of climate change, small and medium enterprises, creative economy, and everything that represents a culture of identity and values with work, rights, welfare, and harmonious coexistence between Nicaraguans and cooperation with the member countries of the United Nations organization in peace, friendship, and solidarity. The government and people of Nicaragua defend the principle of independence and sovereignty as established in the Charter of the United Nations. Therefore, we continue to demand the cessation of any policy of interference that violates international law with interventionist actions in Nicaragua and in sister nations of our Americas and the world, such as Cuba, Venezuela, Syria, Iran, and others. We reassure and reiterate that in Nicaragua we love peace. We strengthen security, promote, defend, and respect human rights in an integral manner. Regardless of the media campaigns that use fake news to seek to impose negative perceptions of our country and of our government. In the region, Nicaragua continues to be an important factor of stability, peace, and regional security, with positive indicators in economic, political, and social development, poverty reduction, gender equity, and citizen security. Nicaragua is a wall of containment against international organized crime, against murders and gangs, terrorism, and drug trafficking. These internal state policies that are of benefit and international cooperation continue to be pursued by the government of President Daniel Ortega Saavedra. Mr. President, honorable delegates, we can state with due assurance that Nicaragua has been pursuing the path of poverty eradication, quality education, climate action, and especially social inclusion with positive results, because our government is called upon to serve the poor and the historically marginalized. Our calling is to peace, good governance, progress, international security, and peaceful coexistence between the kindred countries that make up the United Nations organization. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and many thanks to you, honorable delegates.
I thank the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Nicaragua for his statement.